I think Jordan and I, we get along very, very well now. We've negotiated everything, through the years, and we still have a relationship.
We've got these record rates of anxiety and depression now.
Yeah, and it's all about...
Yeah, because people are focused on themselves.
Yeah.
You haven't got that support around you, that loss of family support. That's the network you rely on.
Yeah.
And once that's gone, and you can't rely on yourself.
It's very much the narrative now that everyone go to university. So when are you going to fall in love and get married and have kids? And for women, that has to happen in a short time, because we only have a short time while we're properly fertile.
I think we've lost a sense of the family, and I think that's part of the big reason now.
Hi, Rocco.
Hi, Tammy.
Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, my pleasure. So we spoke once before. I was on your podcast, recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the first time we've met in person.
Yes.
So that's very nice. You are a senior lecturer at Curtin University.
Yeah.
And where's that university?
In Perth, on the west coast.
I've been to Perth,
Yeah.
Yeah, when we went there, we went in the ocean and had a swim.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful coastlines in the world.
It was beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. I had a niece who studied physiotherapy there.
Yeah.
So it was fun to go there.
Yeah.
We'll come back again.
Yeah.
So what drew you? Is that where you're from? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up there.
Okay.
Born and grew up there, and I've done various things in my life, but I mean, we lived in Italy for a year, but yeah, I mean, my most immediate family's there, so that's why we're there.
And so you've been a professor of law at the university for some time?
Yeah, I've been doing that since 2011.
Okay.
I was in legal practice for 10 years, and then an opportunity came up to do a PhD, which I did, and at the time I was teaching at Curtin, and I was teaching at the University of Western Australia in translation studies and in Italian studies, and but since 2020 I've been teaching exclusively in the law school, and then since about that time started to branch out into different things, like writing for The Spectator Australia and then Sky News Australia, and getting involved in things like this, because it became apparent that, as you just said a moment ago, we needed to step up, because because the people we were electing to do the job on our behalf weren't really doing it.
Right, it's up to each of us, isn't it? Yeah. I had a vision once of going through everyone's DNA and trying to normalize everything, and then taking ribbons of all these different all these different races, and pulling them towards the light, and realizing that was not a reasonable endeavor, that all of us have to go towards the light together. Yeah. That's the only way.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us tend to, and I mean, I've noticed people write to me and say, well, why don't you write about this, or why don't you talk about that? And I write back and say, well, thank you for letting me know, but why don't you do something?
Right.
And so there's a speech given by a football coach in Australia, and he's trying to rev up his team at the half time. He says, why don't the team was losing. He said, well, why don't you do something? Don't just sit around and worry about how bad it's going to be. Do something, step up and do. At least you can say you did something. Yeah. And that's what I like to. That's what I think about it. One day, sometime, somewhere, someone might say to my kids, "Your father did something."
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. And there's nothing more meaningful than looking back over your life and seeing that you have been effective in some way. Right. And one of the ways you can do that is by having a family, getting married and having a family, but then you think, oh, there's my child. Yeah. I have to do something for that child.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Because and it's like Reagan said, liberty is not automatically passed down generation to generation. It's not in the bloodlines. You have to constantly fight for it.
Yeah.
And I think about my childhood and I think of the world today, and I think, gee, you tremor at the thought of trying to bring a child into the world today, given what, as a kid, we didn't have to deal with any of these.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that people think that at every age.
Yeah.
Because what did they think when there was world wars? Oh, better not bring a child into
this. That's it. But then
we always have something.
I mean, my father was born in the middle of the Second World War, so
he made that decision too. Didn't he?
So that's what puts it into that thought, as you say.
Yeah, it puts it into that perspective that we're always dealing with tragedy.
Yeah.
We just have to realize that it's our responsibility to soldier on and to also have a vision for the future and something to strive for. And, yeah. So what do you think you strive for?
I strive for a lot of things, but I think at the end of the day, if there's one thing I probably would like to be remembered, is that I was actually a good husband and father. Mm-hmm. I find a lot of the things I do, and you don't do them for recognition.
Right.
Like, for example, I mean, we had a big debate in Australia in 2023 over a constitutionally enshrined voice, as it was called, for Indigenous Australians, who make up 3% of the population now. I, like Tony Abbott and John Anderson and Jacinta Price and a lot of others who are here, felt that was undermining one of the fundamental principles, that we're all equal under the law. And I was public in stating that I think that was probably, if that were ever to happen, that would be a bad thing for the country. And I did that at personal cost. But at the end of it, no one came around and said, "Oh, you did a great job. Thanks for all the work you did." But you don't do it for that. You do it because you know in your heart that's what you believe in, and that's what you should fight for. And then at the end of it, and I think when our time comes that we have to give an account of our lives, did we actually stand up for what we believe in, and did we live our lives according to the principles that we were brought up?
And would you have been here if you hadn't taken that stand?
Yeah, that's right. And everything happens for a reason. And obviously, I think God wants me to do these things for a purpose. And I think being drawn to taking a stand publicly on certain things and coming to things like this and being active, I think there's a reason. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Well, and it also, there's a community reason, isn't there? Yeah. Having a community is very important. Yeah. People think that they can make decisions on their own now, and it doesn't matter what their community thinks, but that's pretty isolating.
Yeah, and I think we've lost a sense of the family, and I think that's part of the big reason now. Look, in families you get all kinds, right? I mean, my family, people have been divorced and remarried and all these kinds of things. That doesn't mean I think any less of them, obviously, because there are different reasons why these things happen, and it's not for us to say, well, you should have tried this or done that, whatever. But there's nothing wrong with putting forward an ideal, the ideal of man and woman coming together as husband and wife and then having a family. There's nothing wrong with putting forward that ideal. How do
you think you learned that there's nothing you could do about their problems?
Because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our own lives. We're responsible for the choices.
And how did you learn that, do you think?
Because God gave us free will to make choices. I mean, that's part of the inherent dignity that we have.
And they have their own free will.
That's right.
And God has given them that choice.
That's right.
Yeah.
That when we're made in the image of God, and that means that we're born with an inherent dignity, and that includes making choices.
And so, did you have a ethical, religious upbringing?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, we were churchgoers, and went to a Catholic school, and all those kinds of things, and I was involved in the church. I was a server and still am. I'm trying to bring up my kids in the faith. It's probably a little bit harder these days than it was back then, but
why do you think that is?
Because getting back to this community thing, I mean, what I grew up in, I'm born in 1976, so I grew up in the 80s. And even then, practicing rates were pretty low. But now, I mean, I left school in 1993, and of my graduating class of around 120 of us, I reckon maybe about 10 at the most would probably go to church on a regular basis.
Right.
So that's what makes it harder. It's funny. I mean, I remember because we say grace before meals, and it was, and one of my very good friends from school, we get together quite regularly, and he's one of the few that attends mass every week, and we got together with them quite regularly, and his kids said the grace before meals, and my son looked, and he looked at me, and he looked at them, and he said his grace before meals. It's that thing where you learn from others, or I won't want to say you feed off others, but when you see others doing something, it sort of gives us a bit of comfort that, it's something that it's a good thing to do. Yeah,
it's accepted within our group, and so then we will be accepted in our group. Yeah. And
because faith or church going these days is at best seen as something quaint, or at worst is seen bordering on quacky superstition.
Yeah.
Right. It's harder to find people of a similar mentality to you in that sense.
Yeah, I think that it's a, just pragmatically, it's a good practice to go. It's as if you go to work every day.
Yeah.
You have a regular hour that you arrive and a regular hour that you come home, and all of that gives you the pattern of your life. And then when tragedy hits, what is it that holds you from falling deep down? Well, the practice of going to church every day. When tragedy hits, then that's where you can go, and you know the way, and you know the people there. And so it isn't about whether you want to go on Sundays. It's not about every Sunday being special. It's about just the observance of the practice.
Yeah, and this is where I get upset at certain elements within the church who want to make the church more relevant to the modern world. The church has never been relevant to the modern world. That's the point. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. I mean, Christ himself said, "If the world hates you, know that it's hated me before you." So the church, Christianity, it's always been countercultural.
Yeah.
It's always presented on...
Well, and it's man-made.
That's right.
Of course it's going to be fallible.
Yeah. And it's an alternative vision. And you only have to look at around the world parts of the church where there's tradition and they hold fast to the principles, the fundamental principles of the faith, that they're full of young families those churches are full of young families with kids.
Yeah.
And you go to the traditional Latin Mass and find how many young families. It's not something about nostalgia of 80-year-old ladies, who used to sit up the back and say their rosaries. This is the thing about young people. They're looking for something that the world isn't giving them. I mean, I'll never forget the amount of times kids come up to me or email me on the side and say, thanks for teaching us this semester. It was great. I learned a lot. And by the way, I agree with everything you write in The Spectator or on Sky or whatever. Kids know that the world is feeding them a narrative that just doesn't stack up. But they haven't been given the tools to deal with that or to argue against it because of the education system and all these other things.
Yeah, everything that's offered to them isn't leading them in the direction that they need.
So they're crying out for something, and the world's not getting it to them because it's transitory. It's, as Dr. Peterson said this morning, it's hedonistic.
Yes.
But that's where Christianity's main, if you want to call it a selling point.
Mm-hmm. What's your practice like? Your prayer practice or your daily practice of the faith? Do you have a daily practice of the faith?
Well, I try and say prayers on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the rosary. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just, Lord, I really need your help today because I'm going to struggle or I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's nothing at all because it's a bit like...
Sometimes life just starts right away as soon as your eyes open.
That's right. And it's like, like the psalmist, God, I feel abandoned. Why? You're supposed to be with me during this time and I don't feel that you're with me in this time. So it varies, but at the end of the day, I try however inadequately to maintain a
And you go to church every Sunday?
As much as we can.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
As much as we can.
Yeah, that's good. No, I think it's the practice, when I was a young girl, I practiced yoga and I meditated and I did it every day. I didn't have a teacher. There was no one else who knew anything about what I was doing. I was doing it on my own with a book. But it was a practice every day. And although I'm not sure that it was, it definitely wasn't sustaining like reading the Bible and going to church. It wasn't sustaining like that. It was a practice. And when I started to pray, I just exchanged what I was doing for prayer and my prayer life and then my prayer life is every day, just like that was. So it's the practicing of something. So if someone wants to start a prayer practice, I don't know, it looks to me like if you look at other things that you do every day, like going to work, like getting up at a certain time, like making coffee at a certain time, you can slot in prayer at that time.
Yeah. And there's, we say to people, look, God's only asking you for an hour of, however, 24 times 7, he's only asking for an hour.
Yeah. Maybe on your drive to work.
Yeah.
Maybe on your drive home from work.
Yeah.
Maybe on your lunch hour. Like, you don't know when it can be, but you can find that time. And that time is good time, I find.
Yeah. It's
peaceful?
Yeah. It's probably the most peaceful time of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so people say they can't find peace. Maybe they're not taking that hour.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I'll never forget when I was 12 years old, we were leaving primary school and the headmaster said at the time, boys, you're going out into a pagan world. And we said, what are you talking about? He said, people worship different gods, the god of money, the god of sex, the god of power.
Well, that was a good thing for him to say.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And we have to see, if you don't reflect, then you might not even notice that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's why that hour of reflection is good, to see if you are really, if you're really hearkening to God's will, or are you looking to for something else to be fulfilled. So that's a good meditation. So going back to university, what kind of changes need to be made in your university? Or do you think they can make changes to make it better?
I won't speak about specific institutions, but I think generally education needs to be reformed big time, because I think unless we're seeing the pushback against the woke agenda, but until you sort that out in educational institutions, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, we agree with that. That's for sure.
And as I said, kids know that they're being sold something that's not right. But I also think universities too these days, I think they've lost a little bit of sight of what they were there for in the first place. I think and that's not necessarily the fault of universities. I mean, governments these days are pushing too many people.
Oh, that's for sure.
Pushing too many people towards universities.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think at a few levels there are things that need to change. The value of having a trade these days, I think, has been seriously undervalued. But try and call a plumber and get a plumber to come around quickly. Mm-hmm. And when the plumber eventually does come, you have to pay him twice what you might earn in a week.
Right. It's like you can make money in that. And the time we spend in time kids spend in university.
It's just
at least 4 years, sometimes 6, sometimes 9 years. And by then, you're 30.
Yeah, and I'm not...
All those good years just
that's it, the best years of your life.
Right? And in school, the school system was set up for kids to be trained as factory workers way back when, and it hasn't changed a bit. So that yes, there has to be a big reform go on.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be a rethink also of different aspects of education, and because universities just, you mentioned the word factories earlier, they just pump people out.
Yeah. They became a business.
Yeah.
It became a business.
Yeah.
Right. Just like the food industry became a business. Yeah. It wasn't to nourish people, it was to make money again.
Yeah.
The cigarette companies moved over to the food companies when they stopped making money, and they bought the food companies and started making processed carbohydrates. And so now RFK is trying to deal with that.
Yeah. And I think also there's... it's a reflection of that's just saying of a lot of sectors of society. They're not. It's not driven by a purpose or a vocation, or it's driven by something else.
Right.
Whether it's money.
Not meaning exactly. It's not. It's not deep meaning.
No. It's very superficial.
Yeah. Short gain again. More of a hedonistic idea of things instead of. What can I set up right now that would be good for my children when they grow up? A longer reaching vision.
Because universities, they serve a purpose in this world. And they've always, for 1,000 years, they've served a purpose. As a place where ideas can be freely exchanged and to produce people who will go on and take that exchange of ideas into the world and say, right,
and update ideas that are being played out in society.
That's. I think once they get back to that vision, we realise that it takes all types to make up the world, right? To make up society, you need someone to mow the lawns, you need someone to teach, you need someone to practice law, you need a doctor, you need a nurse, you need a plumber, you need all kinds of people, and all together we make up this thing we call society.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing is that because university has been such a destination, and it was in my family. We all went to university. I only got an undergrad though. I didn't go any further. So then I got married and I had kids. But it's very much the narrative now that everyone go to university. So when are you going to fall in love and get married and have kids? And for women, that has to happen in a short time, because we only have a short time while we're properly fertile. And that has been it's not part of the narrative.
No. It's again a very self-centered approach, rather than thinking, well, yes, that's
how can I be effective?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the narrative has just been wrong. We really have to do a lot of work. Free speech. How's your background in law shaped your views on the importance of free speech?
I see less and less of it, and it dismays me as an old lawyer what's happening to how just progressively it's being whittled away. Because in Australia we don't have the First Amendment.
Right, like in Canada. Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. So, and I was one who didn't actually. And it's funny because the founding fathers of Australia, when they wrote the Constitution, expressly considered a First Amendment type provision in the Constitution and expressly rejected it.
They did.
Thinking that, rightly at the time, well, look, what's been handed down to us, it goes without saying that free speech is the most fundamental of all rights upon which all the other rights depend. But
that we didn't need to name it.
Yeah.
Well, marriage too, and women and men, we didn't need to name what they were.
That's right. It just went without saying.
Yeah.
But and the fact that particularly over the last few years, a lot of the legal profession hasn't really defended to any great extent these fundamental rights. I mean, that's the sad part. But also too, you need politicians of courage to say, look, these are fundamental rights, and there are certain things we just can't negotiate on. And unfortunately, those leaders have been lacking.
Yeah, well, boundaries. We don't even have boundaries in our families anymore.
No.
Little kids don't have boundaries. They don't know where the fences are, so they don't know where they can play and where they can't play.
No. And then we wonder why.
So confusing.
Yeah, and then we wonder why things are mucked up.
Yeah, right.
But
discernment.
Yeah.
It's not just about compassion. It's about discernment.
Yeah, and we've lost that ability to discern and to reckon in the old.
Yeah, well, this visual world, I guess, because now there's selfies, you're taking selfies and sharing your image on social media. There's so much reference to to themselves. They've really created part of the hedonistic problem, I think, is how we have used these.
Yeah, it's all about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that there's no. It's all about self-focus rather than looking outward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's important to take. Our Lord said, "Love your neighbour as yourself." It's important to take care of yourself.
Yes.
But you've also got to think about.
Take care of yourself so that you can be effective in the world. Right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you can't be effective.
No.
If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your children. You have to take care of yourself. So you can't give everything you've got, so you have to get proper sleep, for instance. So you can't take advantage of yourself so that you work, 23 hours a day and never have any. Oh, you're not taking care of yourself.
No.
So you're going to be effective for such a short time. It's not even worth it. So,
that's right.
Yeah. People. I don't know. When I was a kid, there were more boundaries.
Yeah, definitely.
There was definitely more boundaries.
Definitely.
Yeah, boundaries had got a bad rap.
Yeah. And look, I'm not saying everything has to be back the way it was in the 1950s, but you look at where things are now, and I think we've
gone too far.
Yeah, we've lost that. I mean, Trump, they talk about a return to common sense, the common sense revolution, and that's what. I think that's one of the reasons why we have ARC. We've got to get back to those common sense.
Pierre Poilievre, who's going to be taking over Canada, God willing, his platform is common sense as well.
Yeah, we've just lost that ability to reason with common sense.
Funny how that's disappeared, isn't it?
Yeah, common sense isn't all that common.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, I guess when you start to have a socialist or a woke culture, then common sense isn't the basis of that culture.
No, because,
it's about power.
Yeah, and you don't trust the people to make their decisions for themselves, right? It's got to be your vassals, and we decide what goes
For
on.
you.
Yeah, and because for your own good, you know.
Yeah. Well, this big government.
Yeah, this
taking the place of the father.
That's
really.
right. Yeah, because it's worship of the state. Which
if the state can take care of the elderly, and if the state can take care of women, then what are men for?
That's right.
Yeah. So men should be really wary of large government.
Yeah, and that's why the state, I think, has also tried to take the place of the family, because the family is always seen as the institution you could always rely on. I mean, people talk about Italians and their families. I mean, that was the whole point, because that peninsula has been invaded over 3,000 years by the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Normans, the barbarians, the Spanish, the French, you name it. So people had that distrust of authority, and they said, well, the only thing we can trust is the family. And once that's gone, then there's it's people have to look elsewhere, right? So they look to the government to tell them what to do.
Yeah, my son is 32, my daughter's 33, and each of them have 3 kids. They're married and they have 3 kids, and they each have one other family that has children in their friend group. All the others are living together or single, or together and not having kids. So that's pretty low proportion of kids or families who are forming families.
Yeah, and again, it gets back to why are people making these lifestyle choices? Yeah.
Well, they're given carrots of all kinds, but those carrots are not. That's not true.
That's right, and it's. I mean, again, this self-centeredness. It gets back to making sacrifices. We all have to make sacrifices. People these days are very averse to making sacrifices.
Yeah, I know when I have a problem with someone, if I pray about it and find what I can do for them, or maybe it's even for them, maybe it's actually even for someone else. If I can do something for someone, then my preoccupation with my own small annoyance disintegrates and goes away. So even just for mental health, thinking about what you can do for others is much more healthy than thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
It ends in anxiety and depression.
And we've got these record rates of anxiety and depression now.
Yeah, and it's all about
because people are focused on themselves.
Yeah.
And look, once I learned, look, it's not about it's not about you. It's about, like you say, looking outward. Then those kind of things will dissipate, and you haven't got that support around you. That loss of family support. That's the network you rely on.
Yeah.
And once that's gone, and you can't rely on yourself, well.
And we just have no idea what it's like. I mean, how many hugs do you need a day to be healthy? We don't even know that. Well, when your family disappears, then you don't get very many hugs anymore. We don't even know what that does to a person.
I know. I mean, it's funny. It's funny. When I was 5, my son goes to the same school that I went to, and then we went for the orientation day, and I hear this girl call out my name, and I look at her, I say, Tarina, and we were in preschool together when we were 5.
And she's the teacher?
No. She's another parent.
Okay.
My son and her son are good friends.
Yeah.
And she said, and my wife was there. She said, the first thing I remember is like you came up to me when I was 5, and we just come to Australia, and you came up and you gave me a hug.
Oh, isn't that nice? Yeah.
And that's what she remembers.
Oh wow, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I didn't even remember it.
Right. Well, my little grandson is 4, and he was going to junior kindergarten, and he was nervous about going to junior kindergarten. And I was there maybe 2 days before he was going to go, and I said, I bet all those other little kids are really, like, they're nervous just like you're nervous. What do you think you could do for those kids to make them feel, you know, better about it? And that just took his mind off himself and started having him think of others, which is just so much better. So we had a good time at school and made a couple friends that day. And
that's, I think as adults we can learn from kids that way, because they're just so, they go make friends easily, and they interact easily, and they don't have any inhibitions or preoccupations, things like that. I think we could learn a lot from them that way.
Oh, well, I learned a little when my little grandson was littler and he was just in a car seat and I was praying the rosary. He was fascinated, fascinated with it. All he could do was stare at it. And I thought, isn't that interesting? You have no cynicism about this symbol. None.
Yeah.
Because you know it's true. You have no cynicism. It's beautiful.
And that's what we're missing. That I don't want to say innocence of childhood, but that the way that they just take everything in.
Well, trust. I think trust, love, and trust. I think that's what we.
And they're the things
need.
we're missing. I mean, and that's what yesterday. I mean, the readings at Mass yesterday were a lot about trust. But that's what we're missing. But then, you know, people let us down too. So it makes us hard to trust.
Yeah.
It makes us hard. It makes it hard for us to trust people. And I know, I mean, I've been let down by some people that
How do you deal with that?
how do you deal with it?
How do you deal with it? Right? I've been let down too, I imagine. And I've let down other people as well. How do you deal with that? Well, you know, maybe no harsher punishment than is deserved, first of all. And you've got to find forgiveness.
I mean,
every day sometimes, because sometimes it's such a bad thing that it comes back to you every day. So you start the day with finding forgiveness, but then you do it the next day too, and you do it for as many days as it takes.
And that's one of the things my parents said to me before I got married. They said, "Oh, look, you're going to have disagreements. They're going to be bad days, but you've got to learn at the end of the day to forgive each other and to trust each other."
Yeah, like a moral review of the day at the end of the day. How are you holding any resentments? Have you harmed anyone? Are you afraid of anything? Bring that to God at the end of the day, and then I would vow to, if I can make amends the next day, to just do that and really get it just done, and then get on with it, because you never know what's going to, like, you might need all of your brain cells the next day for something else.
And I think that gets back to that self-sacrifice. I mean, marriage isn't easy.
No,
but it's not meant to be. It's God, it's hard work.
Yeah, I think Jordan and I, we get along very, very well now, and we've raised our kids. Our kids have left home, and we are grandparents now, and we've negotiated everything, you know, through the years, and we still have a relationship.
And I think also the thing that helps Judy and I in our relationship is we agree very much on the fundamental things. We've got a very similar mentality.
Jordan and I were discussing our values, and I said, well, you know, God is at the top, my husband is next, my children are next, my grandchildren are next, and then I'm next. And I thought, well, that's not quite right. Actually, it's God, my husband, my children, my grandchildren, and what I can do for others is there too. And I'm actually not even there. As you know, me, I'm the others sometimes when I'm taking care of myself because I need to be effective. And he said, you know, I have the same value structure. Maybe that's why we get along.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, yeah, sure, we might disagree on something, but it's a disagreement on how to get to the same destination, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, sometimes we don't know what we're disagreeing about. And the whole thing is to bring whatever you can to the conversation so that you can get more understanding of what you're upset about. And not be so not to hold so tight onto what it is that you're disagreeing on, but think of it as a puzzle.
Yeah.
I think life is a puzzle, so are arguments. Arguments are a puzzle too.
Yeah. And
that's trust, though, isn't it?
That's
It's
right.
trust that you're with a person who is going to have the same sort of contact that you have with them, and so you can trust them.
And things like this, I mean, Judy has no hesitation in supporting me and things like this, and that's something that I'll be always grateful for.
Yeah, so she supports you in everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She, I can't really think of a single where she didn't say, "I won't support you in that."
Right.
In the sense, if we want to do something, she wouldn't
Even
say, I won't.
She didn't tell you, no, that's not such a good idea.
She did say that.
She did say that.
She did say that,
Okay, good. That's good.
But she's never said, "I won't support you."
Right.
You know, and
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've been in the public eye more now too, and she's supporting you.
Yeah.
And Jordan even says that he couldn't do this by himself.
No.
That he needs the support. Yeah, we need support. It's we're just not made to be alone out there.
No.
I mean, and we're not alone, of course, because we have our relationship with our higher power. But really, ideally, we have human contact and human relationships that support us through, especially with this weird cancel culture that we have now.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not in a community that you can be, that will support you and you can trust, it's very hard to withstand this cancel culture. So even now more than ever, I think it's obvious that we need each other, and finding a place like a church that you can go to build community, that when something happens that's a crisis, you can go there and there's your community to support you.
That's it.
So you have been writing for The Spectator.
Yeah. And Sky News Australia.
And Sky News. And so that's TV, isn't it?
It's a website, and then
and you're on the website?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I
then,
see.
Yeah, and sometimes they get me on TV to
And
do
so,
interviews. Yeah.
what do you think of the current political landscape in Australia and fundamental freedoms? How are things going there?
Not good.
Not good.
I mean, we've thankfully last year we fought off a censorship bill in the form of the misinformation and disinformation bill.
Right.
We fought that off, but at the same time, a social media ban was passed, and just the other day, a hate speech bill was passed.
Oh dear.
Now, I don't condone, obviously, this anti-Semitism and any of that. But when there are laws already on the statute books against incitement to violence and they're not applied, and then we need to stop people offending particular groups, pass laws to stop offending people of particular groups. That's dangerous.
Yes. Right.
Now, if you're offended by something, well then maybe ask, okay, well, what's that about? Why is that offensive to me? What's this other person's point of view? I think
Let's discuss.
Yeah, it's the best outcomes have come out of debate. And we don't debate.
And we're
anymore.
not having that.
We're not debating anymore. We need to pass censorship laws to protect you from misinformation. But people can find things out for themselves. Yeah, people work it out for themselves. What's rubbish and what's not. Yeah, look, and there are always going to be people out there who will say stupid things or crazy things or believe weird things and weird stuff, but that's always been the case. But does that mean we need to protect everyone else from them? No, I think.
Well, that whole Me Too movement was about protecting women.
Yeah.
Well, now nobody wants to date anybody. There's no dating in the workplace, yet you're supposed to be working all the time. So where are you going to meet your husband?
I know a lot of relationships come out of the workplace.
Yeah, so this is top-down organizations trying to, quell the nerves of the people. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually be brave enough to say to talk to one another and negotiate.
And that's not happening. I mean,
no, it's not happening.
And we talk about the political landscape in Australia. I mean, we've just had almost 3 years of a very left-wing government that has not wasted a moment in implementing an agenda.
Right.
And it's particularly in rural communities who are bearing the brunt of this solar and wind power energy push.
And so what happens when it's cold and cloudy?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, energy prices in Australia used to have one of the world's lowest prices. Now they're one of the world's highest.
Oh, that's just madness.
People are going. Businesses are going. In the last 3 years, 27,000 businesses, small businesses, have gone bust.
Holy crow!
I mean, small business is the engine room of the economy. You don't have those. You don't have. And small business employs people.
Lunacy.
Yeah.
Total lunacy.
So and we're going to have elections between now and May. So we'll see whether people think that the opposition, the coalition, the Liberal National Coalition.
And do you have some good leader prospect?
Well, the current leader, he's done well to keep the coalition together because at the last election, the Liberals received the lowest number of seats in the lower house and the House of Representatives since the party, in the history of the party since it was formed.
And the Liberals, what?
So they're nominally centre-right.
Not centre-right.
Yeah,
okay.
so, which is opposite to what's in Canada with the Liberals.
It is.
Yeah. So, and I think at the moment, so he's tried to keep the party together, and he's done that. He's had some good people along the way, like the voice referendum. Really, I think, because they decided they'd take a stand on a fundamental principle and say no.
That's radical.
Yeah, for a centre-right party to take a stance on a fundamental principle.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a refreshing change. Refreshing change. And I think they saw the rewards in that, but whether they're still, I think, trying to go softly on certain things.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, whereas I think if you look at someone like Poilievre, who's just saying bang, 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 bang. You know, that we're centre-right. We're a centre-right party. This is what we believe in. This is what we're going to do.
So we're having some examples, which is good.
Yeah.
And so I hope everybody can see they'll have to see the fruits of that.
Yeah.
To see if it goes well. And we're not going to have an election until next year, so it's going to be a while yet.
Yeah. And it remains to be seen what, the Trump factor, how that's going to start flowing through.
That's right. And how much that will influence the rest of the world. Yeah. I think largely it will.
Yeah.
Because they've always been a big influence.
It has to. It has to.
Yeah, well, we're at the beginning of something new.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's a very interesting time to be alive.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, that's for sure. Religious freedom. How's that going in Australia?
Yeah, again, there's the push to take away the choice of parents in terms of sending their kids to school. I mean, parents, for whatever reason, want to send their children to faith schools.
Faith schools, yes. So that's a bigger push. There's a bigger push for that?
To basically take away the ability of faith schools to employ people of faith.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, unless they're teaching religion. But
I don't understand exactly.
Well, but basically they're saying if you want to employ the physical education teacher, you cannot say, well, if it's a Catholic school, you cannot have that the physical education teacher be Catholic as a preferential criteria.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah. So,
if they're Catholic, then they're not hired if they're the phys ed teacher?
Yeah.
They are hired if they're phys ed. No?
Well, they want to because the whole point of having a faith school is that it's a faith community, and that means that the teacher who teaches religion, the teacher who teaches social studies or history, the teacher who teaches phys ed is part of a community that has a core set of beliefs.
Yeah. But that's the only one who can have a belief?
Yeah, but only if you teach religion you can have... It's like, I mean, this is where they don't get it. That in the sense, like, you just subconsciously assent to beliefs and that's it. You don't have to...
Beliefs is a course.
Yeah.
It's not a way of life.
That's
it's
right.
A course.
They don't understand that your faith is a way of life. It's
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah. And that's going to be a big, I think, because in the state I live in, Western Australia, there's going to be an election in a few weeks' time, and the current centre-left government, or left government, wouldn't call them centre-left, left government wants to take away the right of religious schools to employ who they want, based on faith as a criterion.
I see.
So, because again, they just don't understand that faith is a way of life. It's not a tick box exercise.
Right.
So that's a big problem.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll
see how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. Maybe people are tired of it. So then the energy policies in Australia.
Yeah.
What's happening with oil and gas in?
Well, I come from it's very big gas. West Australia, lots. I mean, Australia's got lots of gas.
Right.
But crazily, West Australia's the only state that quarantines a certain amount, reserves a certain amount for domestic use. Other parts of Australia don't do that. So they're exporting gas, but they're not keeping it.
Oh, yeah.
And now
I've heard quite a bit of that.
And a lot of exploration has stopped because naturally...
Are you bringing gas from anywhere else? China? Anywhere? No.
And naturally, if you're an energy company and the government is saying you can't, is trying to disincentivise exploration, so that means now we're going to face shortages.
Yeah. Right.
And this energy policy, where they're thrown all their eggs in this wind and solar basket,
right,
is crucifying the country. Because people have seen that in their power bills. It's destroying rural communities. Australia is very much built on, the saying was, Australia rode on the sheep's back. Australia's an agriculture and mining.
All right.
Without agriculture and mining, Australia doesn't.
What do you have for minerals?
World's biggest uranium deposits.
Oh, yeah. Saskatchewan has that.
Gas,
Canada.
oil, nickel, alumina.
Oh, yeah,
all
very
these
rich in... It's funny, isn't it, that the people who are rich in minerals aren't making any money. Like Canada has so many minerals and it's just not making it. Quebec, so we have, they don't build the pipeline across Canada, right? That was a no-no to build a pipeline. So what they do is they take the pipeline down into the States, bring it back up and serve the Quebecers. And the Quebecers have oil and gas, they won't touch it.
Oh, gosh.
So crazy.
It's like...
No gratitude, huh?
No, I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, look, Australia has a ban on nuclear energy, but we've got the world's greatest uranium deposits.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I mean, let's just look at it. Let's see if it's going to be worthwhile for Australia. Don't just say no.
Yeah.
Flat out, no.
The thing is, they don't know how much work has gone into being able to bring the oil and gas and the uranium out of the earth in as good a way as you can do it, as clean a way as you can do it. Oh, no, you can't have that.
I mean, they forget that this is a mining, agriculture, all these things. And as we move to this digital age, all these servers.
Agriculture too.
Yeah.
And that's another question then. How's the agriculture doing?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, they're taking up swathes of arable land, which in Australia...
Oh, yeah. For the
for
wind?
solar panels and knocking down forests to build wind turbines.
Yeah.
We're killing the environment to save the planet.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. And these all things are made in...
It's nature worship.
Yeah. Made in China in factories powered by coal and gas that Australia exports over there. It just makes no sense. And mining, agriculture, all these are energy-intensive industries. They cannot function on weather-dependent power sources. It's not as if, well, the sun's not shining anymore, we turn the factory down, or we
turn on the coal.
Yeah. I mean, in Western Australia, the day I left, Perth was 35 degrees. 20th of January, 2 weeks ago, the temperature in Perth hit 44 degrees centigrade, which is not a record, by the way. But that day at 6:30 p.m, there was a record amount of power use.
Right. Air conditioning.
Yeah. 4,800 and something kilowatts of energy was used in the southwest of Western Australia, which is where I live. Something like, if you added up if you added up solar, wind, batteries, it wasn't even 10%.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't even 10%.
Yeah.
The rest was coal and gas.
Yeah, because that's what works. And that's what's reliable.
Yeah. That's it. And they're paying. The government is now saying it wants to shut down coal, but it's actually paying them to stay open a little bit longer because they're realising, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
We're going to need the coal to keep the lights on.
Yeah, I would keep that coal going, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because winter will come again.
Yeah. So it's, you need the energy in winter in Europe. In Australia, you need it in summer to run the air conditioners.
Yeah.
And in Sydney, in November, they hit 32 degrees Celsius, and people were told to not use the air conditioners as much. And 32 degrees isn't really that hot in Australia.
Right.
So it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, top-down insufficient. Yeah, what do you call that? Top-down lunacy, I guess is what you call it. So, you got married and you had a son.
Yeah.
How have things changed for you since you've become a father?
Well, in a lot of ways, because and we've got 2 boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. One of whom has a significant disability, which makes life very, very, very challenging. Very, very challenging. And
have you tried cutting out his carbohydrates?
I
know it's hard because they don't want anything but carbohydrates.
Look, we've tried diets, we've tried a few different things, but nothing really seems to have shifted the dial.
When I had arthritis in my knees and my thumbs, and I couldn't walk up and down the stairs. I thought I was going to have to get a house with no stairs in it. I couldn't walk up and down a hill anymore. I couldn't put barrettes in my hair. It was very painful. And I was only eating meat and lettuce and olives and cucumbers.
Right.
And I gave up the lettuce, olives, and cucumbers, and my arthritis went away. So with something, and I don't know that this would help him, but there are things that people suffer from, autoimmune diseases, that won't rectify until all the carbohydrates are gone. And it's worth an experiment because it's not harmful. It's not like we're going to put him on this very expensive experimental drug and we'll see what happens. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying feed him meat and only meat for at least a month and see what happens. And you never know. I know that life's a puzzle and I'm curious, but it's helped so many people. You could at least maybe look on my daughter's website, The Lion Diet, see if anybody talks about it on there, because she's got thousands of testimonials on there of people who've tried. Maybe look through there and see.
I mean, we've had him off gluten and milk for a long, long time, and I think that having that off him, that definitely makes a difference.
Well, if it makes a difference, then food has something to do with it.
Well, the gut is the pathway,
Yes, it is.
And
we didn't know that Michaela and Jordan, we didn't know their depression would lift. We just thought it would help the arthritis. We had no idea that it would help. And they're using, there was a man Scottsdale, where I live. He was a retired military fellow who decided to buy some assisted living places. And he went there and he thought, man, they feed them a lot of dessert and stuff. And he thought maybe that wasn't so good, but he wasn't going to rattle any cages. And then he went and found a personal trainer, and the personal trainer he thought was very good and very strong. And he asked him, and he said he was got on a keto diet at least, so he was hardly eating any and so he went back and he changed the diets of the elderly people. Some of those people moved home.
Man, wow.
Wow. So like we just don't know what's going on and what's happened, because we were hunter-gatherers eating meat only and eating the random berry in the forest. But when we found that berry, we ate everything. And so now we have carbohydrates all the time, and so that's all we think about, because we are supposed to be eating meat and finding our food, along the way, and we're not doing that anymore, but that's how we're set up. And so it's really hard for us to deny ourselves of those carbohydrates, because when they're right there, they call us.
Especially in an Italian family.
What's that?
Especially in an Italian family,
Yes.
Pasta and the carbohydrates.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I talked to a man who was Italian. He said he was on a carnivore diet, and he said, and I'm an Italian. That's a big departure.
I think too, we talk about the food and the food industry. There's a lot of things that can be looked at.
Yes.
The mass production of food. I mean, what it's done. I mean, once upon a time, people used to grow their own and eat their own, and they knew what they were putting in the soil.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know what.
Well, corn used to be a little seed like this, and now it's a big. I mean, it's changed so much we don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what's in these things, and I think hopefully.
And plants, if they had feet, they would run from us. So they have poisons inside them.
Yeah, and I mean, there are pesticides we use in Australia that I know that are banned in Europe.
Right, we do in Canada too.
Yeah, why is that the case? I think we need to look at these things.
Yeah, we do. We have to look at these things.
I mean, as soon as you talk about these things, people look at you as if you've got two heads.
Yeah.
But why?
Saved my life for sure. Yeah. Saved my daughter's life. Saved my husband's life. So 3 of us, I think. My son would be. He would have no family left if we had continued to eat a North American diet.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's crazy. So what motivates you to write about politics and the rule of law?
To try because there are people don't understand, and that's not necessarily their fault. That's not because they're not incapable of understanding, but they're not given the opportunity. They're not given the alternative argument. It's about trying to educate people.
I see.
And present an argument and say, well, yeah, you've been told X, but have you thought about Y? And it's about how I can use my talents. I mean, I like writing. I enjoy it. How can I use that to try and
How often do you
make
write?
a bit of difference? I have a weekly column for Sky News Australia.
What time of day do you write?
Whenever I get a chance. But I generally work better in the mornings. I find I'm a bit fresher in the mornings.
Kind of first thing you do, yeah?
Yeah, once we get the kids out of the door.
Yeah.
And they're, but I mean, and I think also you've got to be in the zone when you write. I find with a lot of things, you've got to have that and mentality, that focus. Right?
Yeah, and so do you just start and then kind of get rid of the first bit that you write and find what works later on?
Yeah, I mean, I sit there and it takes me about, by the time I start and then send it off to the editor, it probably takes a day. And in the sense that, I'll probably start writing, let's say at 9 o'clock, and then I'll stop at around 12, then I'll leave it alone for a while, and then I'll come back to it a bit later on.
In the same day?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then...
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and then next morning I'll try and send it first thing the next morning just to make sure.
Sleep on it a bit.
Yeah, just because, there are things you think, oh no, that doesn't really work. But yeah, again, it's about trying to explain to people. One of the editors that I used to write for said, oh look, you've got a way of explaining to the man in the suburbs about this issue, because people haven't got time anymore they don't
think things through.
No, and that because the world we live in doesn't allow them to. We're just a world of sound bites and slogans and, you know, social media and news feeds, rather than actually thinking about an issue. And I think that's part of the reason why governments don't like too many people saying too many different things, because then they can't control a narrative, right?
So if people wanted to find you, they would put in The Spectator and your name?
Yeah, my name and then The Spectator, or my name and then Sky News, or...
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
About 5 years, five or so years, yeah.
That's been good?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I listened to Sky News when they interviewed Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
That's when I see Sky News, because I follow Douglas Murray, so that's when I see it. Yeah. So you guys are doing good work.
Yeah. But it's just about trying to present people with a viewpoint that they might not otherwise get.
So what, in terms of your writing, do you ever talk about the men and boys and facing the feminist narrative that has saturated our culture?
Basically, that I don't deal a lot with that, but I do try and put a viewpoint that's more family focused, or a focus on, you know, traditional things, the things that I try and point out things to people. Look, you want to tear this institution down. You want to tear this. You know, you hate everything about it. You know, but if it weren't for the education system, you wouldn't have the ability to argue what you're arguing. You wouldn't have the education. If it weren't for the legal system we have, you wouldn't have the ability to protest peacefully. When you're running up and down the street protesting about, you know, kids for climate or things like that. If it weren't for our Christian origins, this idea of that everyone's equal under the law wouldn't exist, or things like innocent until proven guilty. You know, the ideas that we're all equal under the law, they're Christian ideals. I'm not saying that means, you know, you have to all of a sudden go to church every Sunday, but respect what you've been given, because what has gone before us has laid the foundations for what we have now. And just like any house, it can't be built on, a house that isn't built on solid foundations cannot stand. A house divided against itself cannot stand. So you know, these are the kind of things and one of those institutions is the family. I mean, I try and point out, you know, that, you know, it's good for kids to have both a father and a mother. Most of the time, that's nice. Obviously, it's not possible, for whatever reason, for a lot of people to have that father figure.
Well, there's the ideal.
And that's all I'm saying is...
And there's the fringe around it.
That's right.
But you still have the ideal.
There's nothing wrong with... And all I point out is, well, there's nothing wrong with aiming for the ideal.
That's right.
Sometimes you might not get there.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with pointing that out and saying, well, you know, this more or less, since the dawn of time, has served us pretty well. Sure, it's got its faults, but I don't see replacing it with a world that's godless or that's very individualistic.
That hasn't worked out so well so far.
It's not working out, is it?
No, it's definitely not. And I think really even feminism, I think we're at the end of that experiment too, and we have to realize that as well.
And as I pointed out in one of my articles, well, the sisterhood did itself a great disservice when it jumped on board with the trans lobby. Yeah,
that didn't end well.
No. So, and I mean, you know, it's just about...
We seem like we're at the end of quite a few of the Enlightenment ideas.
And again, because people have tried to destroy our history, tried to take our history away from us, and you know, we have to try and get it back. And the only way we can get it back is if people like me and so many others try and say to people, look, well, no, that's not exact. This is our history. This is what happened.
Yeah, and keep writing it down and sharing it with people. And, yeah. As someone with extensive experience in law, how do you see the future of the legal system as everything is evolving? How do you see it changing or do you see it changing?
I think it's changed maybe. I mean, the word lawfare comes to mind. It's unfortunately there's too much of that going on. It's being weaponised, and I mean I don't just mean in America. I mean in Australia too. It's being weaponised. Whereas the law is meant to be. I mean that's why you've got Lady Justice with the blindfold and the scales that are even. It's about getting back to that idea that people deserve justice without fear or favour. And unfortunately, the mentality that's pervading at the moment in the law is this legal absolutism or positivism, where might is right. That the strongest shall prevail, kind of thing. If you've got the power, then you'll use
loudest.
it. Yeah, if you've got the power, use it.
Right.
We've seen some terrible episodes of how the presumption of innocence has been left by the wayside in Australia, just completely forgotten about, shoved to one side. We saw that particularly with Cardinal George Pell.
What happened there?
Well, he was basically the Victorian government, with the assistance of the Victoria Police, called on people to come forward to make accusations of child abuse against him. I mean, I'm summarising here. Rather than rely on people to, and normally someone goes and makes a complaint to the police, then the police investigate, then they determine whether or not there's enough evidence to lay a charge. Whereas this was the government and the police actually calling on people to come forward to make accusations against a particular, make complaints against a particular figure.
I see. Top down.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, he was convicted at a trial, then it went to appeal at to the Victorian Court of Appeal, and the appeal was dismissed 2-1, but it was that dissenting judgment of this particular judge, Justice Weinberg, who pointed out the whole idea of the presumption of innocence and what it means. And it harked back to a particular case in Australia some nearly 40 years earlier of a lady by the name of Lindy Chamberlain, who was portrayed by Meryl Streep in a film. It's the case of this family. They went camping near Alice Springs and they had a little baby, and the baby disappeared. And Lindy Chamberlain alleged that the baby was taken by a dingo. The police didn't believe her and charged her and her husband with murder of the baby. And in the end, it was found that she was innocent and had her convictions quashed. But just this baying mob, the mob that bayed for Lindy Chamberlain and then bayed for Cardinal Pell, without just completely forgetting that, look, hang on a minute, we've got a presumption of innocence here. And all the evidence in the Pell trial, once the High Court, which is the highest court in the country, once the High Court looked at it, said this no conviction can safely stand on the basis of this evidence that we haven't quashed his conviction 7-0. Now, why did it have to go that far? I think we need to get back to those fundamental principles, and it should not have to get that far for a High Court to decide 7-0 that we have to maintain the presumption of innocence at all costs. and that, the power of the state against an individual, when that individual is charged with a crime, is immense power. And it has to be exercised carefully and judiciously. Because if it's not, then it's like that phrase in A Man for All Seasons, when Sir Thomas More is talking about, would you give the devil the benefit of the doubt? And the devil says yes, because if I don't, then one day the devil will come around and turn on you, and then what have you got then? It's that those safeguards are there for a reason. But we've lost sight of why they're there, and that's the whole point of why lawyers have such an important role in society. It's that bulwark against barbarism, but often we forget that. And lawyers throughout time have forgotten that. I mean, Christ had no time for lawyers. I mean, why aren't you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites? Yeah. Charles Dickens, he was disgusted with the legal profession in Victorian times. And we lose sight of that. And it's again getting back to those fundamental principles that have laid the foundations for our society to be as successful and as prosperous as it is. It's when we do away with those that we lose our way.
We're letting many kids into university now. And I imagine we're letting more kids into the practice of law as well. I wonder if the practices, medicine, law, education, have been watered down because the universities have got greedy for their bringing in and having kids pay tuition, that they've let in people who maybe aren't suited to the professions that they're being trained in. Yeah. Because it used to be difficult to get into university, and there were only a few that were allowed, and it's not that I think it should be all men, but it's that I don't know how much the population goes to university now, but it's very high.
Well, in Perth there are 5 universities, and all of them have law schools.
Yeah, right.
And look, whether it's a question of dumbing down, but that's something that's across the board in education.
Yeah, it's across the board, but we have across the board problems.
Yeah, and whether it's getting back to that curriculum. What are we teaching kids? I mean, and it's the same in the schools. I mean, over the last 10 years or whatever it is, state and federal governments in Australia have spent $60 billion on schools.
Oh, I see.
And the money that's spent goes that way, but educational standards are going there. Australia's education, we've slipped down to in the 30s on the OECD rankings. So just throwing more money at it and throwing more people into it isn't necessarily the solution.
Right.
It's the quality of education they're getting.
Yeah, and and also, so we're letting we're letting more people into university, like many more people into university, and that's 4 years of their life, which are good years that they could have been working and finding a husband and getting married and having children. So, we have work to do. Yeah. We definitely have work to do.
Yeah, and we need all hands on deck to do it.
Well,
thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you.